our art readings. The subject this year is Chronos and Topos, a very vast theme, and I'm sure that all the speeches will be very, very interesting. Now I would like to give the speech to our director, Professor Joanna Spasova-Dikova, for a welcome address to our participants. Thank you.
Hello, Christos Voskresek. Dear guests, dear organizers, it is really a pleasure for me to say a few words of welcome for this forum. This forum is very special for the Institute. It is provided for 24th time. Can you imagine? Next year we shall have an anniversary. So that we are together, and this is really very moving for me every time to open it. We have, for those who don't know, we have two models. One is old art, the other is about new art. And today it starts the new art. That means that now we shall have a marathon for something like almost 10 days. So that we start today. And I want to say that this institute, usually through its forums, popularizing its activities, its scientific researches, has a very great mission. It is unique in the system of the Bulgarian culture. Its mission is to preserve the memory. And so the special thing is that our subject is art. We're the only institute where all the arts are studied together. So today, once again, we shall continue our talks, our discussions. And I'm very happy to say that this year, again, there are 41 speakers on this forum and guests from many countries, from Albania, Serbia, North Macedonia, Romania, Poland. So yes, Greece, of course, very important. So we are together, and also there are participants from many universities, from the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences institutes. And as it was said already, and as you can see on the facade, this year we have a very, very nice topic, topos and Chronos. So here I want to wish you a very fruitful work on these topics, because we shall talk mainly about time and eternity, time in art, the spaces, the holy spaces, the not holy spaces, the palaces, the churches, about the icons, about all these interesting toposes and chronoses. And well, let me paraphrase our motto from Ioannis Zouzoulos, late Metropolitan, that Chronos is a moment when we stop to look into the past, so to see really what is the future. So I wish you all, let us all to stop a moment, and this moment is longer, as you can see, to stop this longer moment and to see our future, to see the science and art in these very turbulent times of wars, of crisis, and to help the humanity to be better. So wish you success. Shall I invite the people? No, I mean, Right, yeah. Yes, I'm very pleased to say at 5:30 today there will be a glass of wine, so we shall have a very, very short party. So you're all welcome. And so now I give the floor to the first person, our keynote speaker, to say his words. So you are welcome. Elmont Hoja. I'm sorry, it's Hoja. It's yes, because when it's written, of course it's Hoja. I'm sorry. Yeah. So here you are. Thank you. Here it is.
First, good morning, everybody. My name is Professor. Please help me with a question about this story. I want to thank you for the invitation, Professor. We had a couple of distance in the future, and now I have the invitation to make the presentation for you today about maybe I'll go with this microphone there, or I need to move it. It's better to stay just in this way and to stay. So my topic is a little technical because it has to do with the technology, but inside is also the history. So the topic is mapping of cultural and natural heritage using advanced technologies such as GIS, drone, LIDAR, and laser scanner. It's a group work because it's a project, and it's a case study about my village, Lubonia village, which is in Korčit, Albania. And what is the focus of the project? The study is the result of the scientific project, as the title said, and it is dedicated to heritage of Lubonia, culture and natural, and it is founded by the National Agency for Scientific Research and Innovation. As you will see later, Lubonia is a village with origins dating back to antiquity, as reflected in the presence of remains and ancient settlements. This includes architecture elements, cultic structure, fortification, and domestic dwelling. And the studies focus in 4 main things, which is Lubonia Castle. It's a Dormition of Holy Mary Church, which is first category culture monument. It's Century Oaks and the Lower Glacial Lake and the other settlement. The goal is mapping and 3D modeling of historical areas, archaeological potential, and natural monument in the village of Korčit. Very briefly, what was the process in cartography? We used the equipment total station, GPS surveys, laser scanner, drone surveys, LIDAR surveys, 3D models, and GPS maps. We use this in a castle tower, in a church, mapping the oaks, the artifacts, the archaeological zones, castle of Lubonia, and the church, as I said. Here is a 3D model about the region of the area where the church is made by drone, and it is elaborated in a program called PXKD. where is a real model. You can make measurements. You can make even every stone of the church, inside and outside. This is just for the illustration. Here is a photo of how we did the laser scanner of the church, outside and inside. And here is the result. You see a 3D model of the church. Even every detail is there, the stones, the arcs, the stairs, and we can go also virtually inside in the church. This is the most element which has importance for these archaeologists and for the specialists for the church. We have the plans of the church. We have mural painting, which is in a real dimensions. You can measure every details direct from the computer. You can make a section cut, and there is this iconostas model, which is actually there, made by laser scanner. About this GIS we use it to make the archaeological map of all the region. It is used by making 100 shape files. Who knows GIS, he knows what is this. And we make these layer groups, which are cultural, archaeological findings, natural monuments, toponyms, topography, roads, historical, base map, etc. Going in more details, these are the archaeological areas in Lubonia village. There are 11 archaeological areas, starting with the Lubonia village, the actual place. I'm using the real name as a toponym, so I didn't translate. So the other one is Cucești, Malai Siprme, Breza, Gurișcipes, Stermoli, Robas, Castle of Lubonia, Maliezi, Lubonia Field, and industrial area, copper mining area. Short information for each area. This is the actual Lubonia village. As you can see now, there we have only one church, which is not functioning, but is a monument culture, which is the Dormition of the Holy Mary. And we have the St. George Church and St. Athanasius, but these two are destroyed and they are not functioning. What we knew before, we know that we have two churches and we had some archaeological records in the past. The second area is Cucești. We know before that we have the church, 3 churches there. It's San Friday, it's a monastery, San Demetrius, and a church called Gurima. We had ceramic finds, trace of graves, and settlement rhymes. If you see the pottery, they start from a late Bronze Age, Iron Age. We have some tumulus, we have grave, we have wall trace, and we have some coral fossil, which was very interesting to find there. What was the role of the technology in this? If you see this is a LiDAR and drone scanner. After we came back to office, we saw an exceptional anomaly. You see this line here, and we doubt that something was happening there. When we had the surveys in the area, we didn't saw nothing because there was some vegetation there. But when we came back exactly by coordinates, we discovered that it was a long wall there, about 80 meters. Here are all the artifacts, pottery that we have found in this place. They start in different age, and we had some bronze coin. And this is very interesting for our fossil, very exceptional. And now it's a new study for this fossil with the Polytechnic University of Tirana and University of Krakow in Poland. Continue furthermore, we found here some graves and some tumulus area. The special is this, all these trace of graves, they have the same orientation, east-west, which it's equally to another culture of archaeology in Albania called Coman culture, very old, but it's still to be proved. Another area is called Male Sipermech. There is a lake. Here also there are a lot of findings. We have a church called San Marina there, Saint Marina, and we have a lot of artifacts, ceramics, and graves. Again, they're starting from the late Bronze Age, century 13 to 12 before Christ, early Iron, and going to century 7 to 8 before Christ. Another area is called Breza. It's called Breza because it's in a hill, and what was known before, there has been a very bloody battle, historical memory, in this place, but until now we have found nothing to prove this, but we found some, because of the technology, we found some walls there, rains, and very small ceramics. But in the second phase, we'll go deeper to see what are these walls and what are the ceramics and rounds. Going to the area called Guriščipis, in Albania means Eagle Rock, in English means Eagle Rock. It was a surprise because all the findings here are very old also, starting from a late Bronze, early Iron Age, and going to Antiquity century 6 to 5. Here is in the top of the mountain. We didn't have time during the project to see in details there, but there is some historical data that there is a settlement there started in 1st century before Christ. It's a point to be analyzed in the future. Robasi. Robasi in Albania means clothes, dress. So because of in the past time, people making a lot of clothes there, we, as a toponym, used Robasi. There is a church also on the Rains, and it is considered very early. It is situated close to the Fucia church. We will speak for the Fucia church later on because it's a special case. Now we come to Castle of Lubonia. It's in the top, and you see it's a view of old village Lubonia, and it's a view on the south of the old regions called the Colonia. Maybe you know Colonia from historical places. What is the fortification periods? There are two construction periods. The first one starting 8th to 7th century before Christ. And you see the red line in the map there. And you see there is a construction with a very big stones. This place where the photo has been, it's supposed to be the carrier, the place where the stones are found and put in the castle. You see the walls. Here's the walls. The walls go to 2.5 meters to 3 meters large. And where in the first period we have 3 gates, number 1, number 2, and number 3. In this project we just clean only one, number 3 and number 1 and number 3, and we didn't touch number 2 because of the time. What was found in a survey? You see there's very special stones in the walls. And let's see now the second period, which is in a line with the Greek color. The construction of this, the main point is the tower on the top, and there are a lot of rains inside and some arc walls. And there we have one gate, which is close to the tower, gate number 3. It's interesting because this object was known since 1984, and you see that the first design of the tower was circle. Now after the technology and after our survey, it's a half elliptic tower. It's not full circle. In 2000, so you see the difference of the tower. These are some photos from the tower. It was before the cleaning, it looks like a circle, but in fact it was not a circle, it was elliptical, as I told. Here's some view of the gates, the first gate, late antiquity. And you see in the tower, we got some holes. It means that there was some scales there, which prove that the tower could be at least 2 stories high. Also, some other finding there. It's a arc. We don't know what is this object there because it's still unclean. In the second phase, we'll clean everything and we'll see if it's a living object or it's for the animals. But also we have also the quadratic construction from the other side. The only archaeological materials that we found was in the tower of the castle. And it was only one pottery. It was for cooking and drinking. Unfortunately, before us, some illegal excavation has been there, and they destroyed. We didn't find nothing, only the fragment of the pottery. Now let's come again to technology, how we discover all of things. We knew that the castle was there, but not in details. If you see here, it's a LiDAR scanner. This is the drone that we use. It's the last one. It's just we bought 2 years ago. It's a very new and very good one. You see the construction of the walls of the castle in the middle. You see the quarry on the top, and there are these 2 new areas with the outline in white, which have not discovered yet. We don't know what they are, but as you can see, there's something there. Probably here there is a square, but also in the other side. Also, we find all the gold because there is a lot of high vegetation, and now we are more clear where to go in the future. From the other side, you have also the LiDAR survey. You have all this elevation model there, DTM and DCM, so you can make everything, you can measure everything there, surface, the elevation, etc. What we can do also with LiDAR, you see the characteristic of LiDAR is that we can put out the vegetation. We can go in the ground. You see here is a profile with the brown color. It's the ground, and we have the trees. With the program, we can remove all the trees, and we can go in the ground. And if our lines are, let's say, more than half meter, we can discover. But if they are less than half meter, it's difficult to be discovered because the program doesn't correct in the end. Sometimes even the grass can interpret it as rains, the wall of the structure. But it's good. It's very good. And we use the soft Digitera and Global Mapper to discover this, what is hidden in the tree. Here is also a 3D model now of the castle. It is built by ArcGIS-Scan. As you can see, now it's clear. It's first period, century 8 to 7. And with a yellow one is the late antiquity castle. And inside we have this area which are the objective of the second phase of the project. Let's go to another area. It's called, in Albanian, Malizi, but in English means Black Mountain. Not like Montenegro, but Black Mountain, we can see. Here it was very interesting. What you need, it was supposed that in the top of the mountain was a very old church. We went there, we didn't find nothing, but we found a lot of illegal excavation. If you see on the right down, there's terribly excavation, then not by hand, it looks by machinery, because they are, if you see the dimension, they go to 7 meters to 4 meters, so they use machinery to excavate. We don't know what they found there, but the villagers say that they found something. We don't know what. But we found a wall in the top on the right there. We didn't touch it. We just make some cleaning. It is an arc wall One idea is to be in the apse of the church, but we don't know. We'll see in the future what is. Now we go to Lubonia field. You see from the top, we have all the field of the village. And what was known before the project, it was known that the ceramics had been found during the agricultural works, but they remain unspecified. The villagers say that every time they're digging to the field, they found pottery, a lot, and there is an option that maybe there was a small factory to produce bricks of pottery there, but we are still looking. And we have this Fucia church. Fucia maybe it is becoming from the word fush in Lubonia, in Albanian language, but also could be coming from power, because we say also in Albanian Fucia, power. So it's a dilemma to be discussed between power terminology or field terminology. There is a lot of founding there, which starting from the second late Bronze Age, Iron Age, Roman period, and late Antiquity. It's very important because there is a discussion, because a Roman army, led by Sulpice Gamba, has passing through this region, not exactly, we don't know where, but very close. So one of the objectives for our LIDAR and artificial intelligence in the future is to trace the road, how the Roman army has passed. Here are some of the ceramics that we found there. And here's the church. This Fucia church or power church, we don't know how to call it now, but the villager called Kisha Fucin. You see, it's full of vegetation. We are coming to the conclusion that it's a tumulus, and we didn't touch nothing. But we found, again, an illegal excavation there, and we found this pottery in this illegal excavation. And during the cleaning of this excavation, we found this wall. It's supposed, maybe it's the surrounding wall of the church, but of course we didn't touch again. We cover with the ground again, and it's the object of the second phase. Here's a map. You can see in a chronological order how these findings are distributed in the village. They start from modern, and they go from early Bronze Age to modern period. So it means that there has been a long continuity of the life in this region. Now we come to the church. I'm sure it's my favorite, but it's favorite of Professor Russell also. It's interesting discussion also in Albania. First, I'll explain you that Lubonia village has had 12 objects of cult, plus some small churches, we call them konisma. You see, all this region has been with the church, starting from the Kisha Kamen, Dormition of Mary, Saint Mitrogeorgi, Saint Marina, Saint Athanasius, Saint Demetrius, going to top to the castle. Now we focused on our church. Here are three views. You see the photo of 1967. It's the year when the Albania regime destroyed all the church. We are lucky because this church was not destroyed, but this year the University of Tirana decided to include in the list as a monument of culture, so it's safe. And here's a view of 2004. Professor remember this view because the church was ready to be destroyed. You see this view, and it was a big effort from our side. We saved, and now the church, at least from this construction side, is saved. But there is many things to do inside that We'll see later on. This is a photo from Professor Perseva in 2003, and it is confirmed by me in 2005. So I didn't know that professor made a study before, but I knew it later on. So this is the inscription which prove that this church is established in 1015 from the beginning, and it was reconstruction in year 1086. And all this painting has been from a painter from Corca, Terpo. This is the wall when the inscription was. Unfortunately, during the last restoration, this wall fell down. It's not existed anymore, but we have the photos. And we'll try to restore it. So, about the mural painting. There are 4 studies about the mural painting. The first study is made from Theophan Popa in 1967. And it's very important because it's the study when all the painting existed. It was not fell down. And according to Popa, there are 3 phases of the painting. The first one is created immediately after the initial construction of a church in 11th century. Unfortunately, this paint has collapsed now. It's not exist anymore. But since there, Popa evidenced the presence of Saint Sylvester of Roma in the church. The second painting is in the 13th century, and the third painting of Popa is attributed to terposography in 1806. Second study is made from Professor Seva in 2003-2004, plus the others. What was very interested, evident from Professor was again the evidence, the presence of San Silvestris, but on the difference with Popa, Professor made some detailed analysis and some reason why would be the San Sylvester there. And she explained that there are 3 moments. The first, the presence could be linked to the specific historical circumstance in 11th century. The second one, the church themselves could be fully in Latin influence. Then the third one, the presence can be as a reproach to the Latin and a reminder of the dogma of the Trinity, which was once accepted by Roman, but later on was rejected. And professors say that from a stylistic point of view, the painting is linking to the classic tendencies of the late communing art. But she said, considering as the best regional example from the late 12th to 13th century. The other study of the painting is made from our project in 2024, and the main steps of the study was visual observation, laser scanning, and description of the painting. In a laser scanning, we make this process. We provided detailed data and imaging and the mural painting in a real dimension through the use of these images and their processing software such as Pharoscan, GIS, AutoCAD, and Recap. The experts can perform the digitalization direct to the mural painting, identifying damages area, determining surface area, the quantity of materials that need for restoration, etc. At least last one, we made the possible to make a 3D model of the iconostasis, which was destroyed during the time. Here are some photos of the first phase of the mural painting. As you see, these are 2 most important. On the left, we have Saint Mary of the Annunciation, which is phase 1, 12 to 13th century. This is photo in 2024, but also Professor and Popa has made a photo. And on the right side, we have the Saint Anthimos of Nicomedia also is a photo of 2024. Now let's go to the second phase of the painting. It is not preserved all, but the most fragmented, they are in the eastern wall and partially on the northern and southern integral wall. The painting is organized in three levels. The first level up, there are scans from the life of Christ and Saint Mary, the Acanthist tomb, church history, etc. The second level is a band of martyrs enclosed with medallions. The third band, which is reserved for the individual depiction, we saw it before. And the bottom hand is with the geometric ornaments. The most important scan, there we have the extreme humility of Christ, mid-Pentecost, Christ's encounter with Samaritan woman, and the healing of the blind man. Here is the view, the whole view of this painting. You see all these levels, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This photo is also 2024. Here we have some details for the extreme humiliation. You see how the painting is coming to be destroyed from 2003, the photo of Professor, 2005, the photo of the Institute of Archaeology in Corcha, and 2024 is the actual situation. Because of the people going there, put candle, all this portrait there is coming black, but we have a plan to restore. Here is a scan of the Pentecost. It is well preserved. There is no so many change from 2005. And here is the Christ meeting with the Samaritan woman. Also is in this situation now. And here's the healing of the blind man. Is the photo in 2004, but there is no change from 2005. Now let's see what are the conclusions of the project about the mural painting. It is entirely painting of the church, reflects the trend of the time of the final phase of the post-Byzantine painting, absorbing and adapting contemporary artistic currents from both West and East. Even we find composition in different styles, we notice a successful balance between the Byzantine tradition of the Paleologan period and borrowing some elements from the Western part. Interesting is that in an Orthodox church village, a Catholic Pope is depicted, and moreover in the apse. It was evident from Popa and Professor Ruseva at this time, but difference is that the project makes some new incomes there, and he said that the reason could be the first donor decision. We know that when the donor gives some money, they sometimes decide what will be the iconographic program. But in this case, we are not sure, because the donor was the priests of Lubonia village and the villager. So we have the right to raise some question. Or the village has been very advanced in mentality for the time, or they were very highly rebellious and critical, or they are expressing their opposition by placing the figure in the apse, or the painter also has been some rebellious also. The second one reason could be ecumenical breach. Despite of the schism of 1054, there always have been some efforts for church unification. Pope Sylvester was seen as a bridge between East and West. And generally, the way of the mural painting, as it is now, show a process of many transformations over the time. But in the context of Byzantine and post-Byzantine art study, Lubonia painting, created by a local workshop, presented by Tervozography, takes a special scientific and historical importance. Now we're coming to the last interpretation. This is still theoretically, and it is based on the Bruce Trigger analysis. I'm sure you know Bruce Trigger, this Canadian archaeologist and anthropologist. He has some very interesting concepts, and we try to include his concepts to make the interpretation of the Lubonia village. And according to these concepts, in the year 1015, the landscape of Lubonia underwent a radical architectural transformation with the construction of the church, the Dormition of Holy Mary. This dating is of very importance because it marks the period of Christian consolidation in the region following the restoration of the Byzantine authority. According to the Bruce Trigger, the construction of religion monuments at strategic points dominating former ancient settlements serves to mark the territory with a new ideology, investing the landscape with a new political. What does it mean? It means that the shift of focus from the fortifications, because maybe the castle lost its defensive function after the 6th century, the going toward the religion hills may indicate a radical shift to the strategy of the local elite. There are 2 points important. First one, moving from power to normative power. According to Trigger analysis, social control was no longer through the powers, through the physical force, but through the ritual and the institution of the religion. The church now became the center of gravity, where the elite administered the loyalty of the population. The use of the iconography as a media, the mural painting and the iconography of the church served as a form of the visual diplomacy. They positioned the community of Lubonia within the greatest Byzantine hierarchy, providing that even after the abandonment of the fortification, this territory remained an important node of imperial communication. This architectural transition proves that Lubonia did not choose to exist as a center. It simply changed the language from power, moving from the power of the cool stone of fortification, they are going to warm colors of the liturgy. Then now with Trigger, we come to Pope Saint Sylvester. The presence of Saint Sylvester in the apse of this church is a very rare element that requires deep critical analysis. Trigger emphasized that iconographic art, instead of religious monument, it's never accidental. It reflects political alliances and the desire of the elites to link themselves with the universal source of power. In this meaning, these iconographic details of the key Western figure like Saint Sylvester is an area in an area where it's close to East Byzantine Ohrid. It's a powerful political statement. The presence of the Pope Sylvester in a church in an area under the jurisdiction of Ohrid proves that Lubonia was not merely a dot on the map, but possibly a diplomatic terminal crossroads where 2 worlds meet. Lastly, based on a Trigger analysis, this iconography served with 2 purposes. First one is dual legitimacy. It means that the integration of the Lubonia elite into an international network of presses, making this site as a contact point between 2 great spheres of influence, Rome and Byzantium. Second one could be a message for the travelers. Since the church was located near a historical road, remember I told that we are looking to see if the Roman army passed there, could serve as a media communicating to travelers, trades and diplomats that this place possessed a cultural autonomy and high-level ecumenical connection. Both project and trigger analysis, we came in one point with consensus: the integration of the Lubonia elite into an international network of prestige. This approach of trigger transformed the church from merely local objects into a visual embassy of the great theological balance of the 11th century. Now I'm going very fast because it's so long. It was lucky because of our project discover all the lost icons. On the time that the regime changed in 1991, but before in 1967, all the icons was disappeared from the church. Even the church was a monument protected by state, and we had no signs of this icon until 2002 with the project. So we found, in a cooperation with the Museum of Arts and the icons in Corcha, 64 icons. They were in storage, but nobody knew that it was our lucky. So we found 64 icons, Balkadins, iconostas fragment, and one wood carve. I will show you very. There are all the parts of the iconostasis. First is apostles, 6 apostles, 11 apostles, and Balkan part. Here are the icons of the great events. Here are the main icons of the iconostas. There are 7 icons. These are some of the best. We have San Demetris. We have Dormition of the Virgin Mary here. We have San Nicholas here, which is one of the best. And we have the first ecumenical council on the right. We have the Virgin Mary on the left, and we have the John Baptist on the right. And there are 2 crosses, very unique. The first one, we don't know if this belongs to the Church of the Virgin Mary, but assured from Lubonia, probably from the other church which were destroyed. And this is a very unique cross. It never exists. And this is belong to the Church of the Holy Mary. Here is the model of the existing iconostas today. As you see, there is nothing there, only the roots. And through the technology and with the help of the Museum of Corcha with the icons, we make a new try to see how the iconostas have been. And this could be rebuilt of the modeling of the iconostas of Lubonia. According to the information that we have now, all the icons, they are in a museum. We cannot keep them in a church, but we have a plan to make a copy and to make the church a little more attraction for the tourists. But the original, they will stay there. There is a discussion to put the icons in the iconostas or to put in the other walls, because if we put it in iconostas, we will cover the mural painting, which is very unique. So it's a discussion. We'll see what will be the decision. Here's a 3D model of the church as it has been. You see that different separates inside. On the left side, in the end, there has been a type of classroom there. Maybe they used for training. We don't know what has been. And in the part of the apse, we see another room, which has been used to pray only for the women. They have a separate gate from inside, so they follow from this room inside. They have no right to go to the other, in the front part. So the ladies and the children stay there, and the men stay in this part. It's interesting, but it's a long story. Now we finish with the church, we go to the natural heritage, how we use the technology to make the documentation. And there are three elements, main points: century-old oaks, century-old pines, and glacial lake. Here are the old oaks. You see, every one of them is in the place of the church. As I told you before, there have been 12 churches, and we have all these oaks there. They are more than 600 old, but this is a new project to make the analysis of this. Yes, I'm finishing now. Here's a map, GIS map. Here's the old, here's the glass lake. Now, it's the last point. We use WebGIS to make the touristical website for the Lubonia using the technology. If you scan there, you can see many information. Here's a map. We had 60 recommendations of the project. The most important was the construction, revitalization of the dormition of the Holy Mary Church, the archaeological study, etc. And this is the view of Lubonia today. If you can see closely, we have only the Virgin Mary Church existed, nothing else. But what has been in the past is this one. You see, very populated with many things, with many churches, with a castle. It's a lively activity and populated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Roger, for this so interesting speech. And we still have some archaeological site, cultural and sacred topos. Was developed during the epochs, during the ages, and it was really, really very interesting. And I hope that we will have after discussion. And to say that I love this church, and I'm very, very sad about this information that some of the walls bring. And according to my opinion, because I'm a Bulgarian scientist, and I'm dating this first layer of the church during the reign of Bulgarian King Kaloyan, and it is my explanation of the presence of the Pope Sylvester. It was very interesting. Thank you, Professor Roger. And now, please, our colleague Marina Koleva to be a moderator to the first session.
No break.
I think that we have not enough time for a break.
Okay, but
and
short break. Okay.
And it will be nice to make this scientific connection between the first plenary speech and the first session about antiquity.
new interpretation of the scene from the Thracian tomb of Alexandrovo that I read like a door to the beyond world. Най-напред няколко думи за гробницата от Александрово. В могила Рошова чука край Хасковско село Александрово, открита е 2000-та година доктор Георги Китов, датирана втора половина на 4 век преди Христа. Гробницата е каменна, последните части дълъг и покрит коридор, ъгълна камера, кръгло помещение, които с купол, кръглокуполно помещение. Пред входа на гробницата, на куполното помещение, е открита двойна врата на пода пред входа, която има заключващи механизми отвътре. Време на откритието гробницата е била много добре запазена. Сега, за съжаление, заради липса на консервация, се разпада. Стенописите са изчезнали на много места. Всъщност идеята да направя такова проучване и такава интерпретация дойде от една моя студентка, която е и освен изкуствовед и реставратор, която е имала достъп преди на две до гробницата във връзка с опити да бъде спасена и ми прати стенописи в наистина ужасяващо състояние. И всъщност нейният въпрос беше какво е изобразено на тази сцена и така появи тази интерпретация. Както винаги, на мен много често ми се случва, при добри въпроси от студенти се появяват и новите интерпретации. Това е иконографията също съвсем накратко, повечето от вас сигурно я знаят. В централното помещение са изписани сцени на лов, които виждате тук, и пир, а в дромоса и предверието са изписани бойни сцени. Още при откриването сцените в коридора са зле запазени, с изключение на една. И това е точно тази, която ще разгледам днес. Тя се намира над вратата към куполното помещение. Моят прочит я разглежда именно като хронотоп на прехода, каквато е и темата, една от темите на конференцията, в който топографията на гробницата организира преминаването между различни времеви режими на съществуване. Сцената е разположена в трапецовидно поле над входа на куполното помещение, изобразява препускащ конник с вдигната ръка с копие, който се приближава към странно представена, обърната с гръб към зрителите фигура, полуоблечена с много странно облекло, която сякаш държи жълт предмет. Традиционно сцената се чете като ритуално бойна или реалистично военна, в смисъл, че конник с копие напада полуголата фигура, която държи щит. Има спорове дали фигурата с гръб е на мъж или на жена. Всички са озадачени от странното и облекло, наподобяващо съвременно боди. Моята хипотеза за сцената е, че е представено едно било на златна порта към отвъдното, което е разтваряно пред препускащия владетел от млада жена, необичайна украса на главата, с която една част повредена, но се виждат ленти, вероятно шапка или шлем. Необичайна дреха, прилепнала около торса и с открити задни части. Сцената е разположена на западната стена над реалния вход и, както споменах, две крили каменни врати са залоствани отвътре, са намерени на пода пред него. Тя стои над входа към куполното помещение, където именно се намират ритуалното или погребално легло и сцените на лов и пир, които гробницата е така популярна. Всъщност тези дейности, лов и пир, са описвани неведнъж като заниманията на тракийските царе в отвъдния свят. Тълкувам тази сцена като противовес на известната мистериална заповед, която гласи: затворете вратите пред непосветените, а именно, че този визуален текст гласи: отворете вратите пред посветените. Защо златни двери, а не щит, както чайно се тълкува? Няколко са аргументите ми. Най-напред, ето тук вляво от жълтия предмет се виждат доста ясно от снимките на моята студентка архитектурни форми, очертани с черен, с тъмен цвят, които са успоредни линии. Т.е. не нещо наистина е нарисуване, но успоредни и перпендикулярно пресичащи се. Също така в жълтия предмет добре се виждат дъските на вратата, ето тук крайната от тях, и се вижда профила на вратата. Също се виждат успоредни и перпендикулярно пресичащи се линии. Вратата се намира зад коня, т.е. трети план. Първият е вратата, втори план коня, на трети план е вратата. Коня е пред вратата и вратата продължава и под ръка на коня. Виждате много добре, ясна правоъгълна форма. Ако това е вярно, ако тази интерпретация е вярна, конникът би следвало да мине между вратата и женската фигура, която отваря вратата отвътре и всъщност с ръката си препречва пътя му. Може би е знак, че конникът ще бъде подложен на някакво изпитание. Сега тези слайдове ще ги мина набързо, без подробности. Те представят някои от многото паралели на нарисувани или фалшиви врати в гробнични съоръжения. Най-близки са иконографските паралели на етруските гробници. Нарисувани са, от двете им страни винаги има някакви фигури, понякога тълкувани като пазачи, в други случаи като канти или извършващи някакви ритуални действия, или пък шествия от дионисови персонажи. Няколко паралела от каменни или течени в скала фалшиви врати. Най-скоса Пещарската гробница, 3 век, гробницата на Евридика от 4 век преди Христа и една по-стара етруска скално изсечена гробница. Подобни примери, паралели има и в Мала Азия, в Фригия и Ликия, паметника на Мидас, 7 век преди Христа, и много близкия паралел с фалшиви врати над входовете на скално изсечени гробници от Мира, също 4 век. Източника на всички тези фалшиви нарисувани врати в гробни съоръжения е в Древен Египет. Старо царство започват и през цялата египетска история се срещат различни гробни съоръжения, мастаби, саркофази до мистическия период. Ето е тук една такава гробница, сечена в скалата и нарисувана врата от края на 4-ти, началото на 3 век, почти съвременна, малко след Александровска гробница. Един паралел от тракийското изкуство върху амфората Ритон от Панагюрище. Пред въоръжени мъже, пред въоръжен мъж се отваря една крила врата, отваря мъж, плешив с брада, също отвътре, също с гръб към зрителите и също в една такава изкривена, странна поза. Тази ярко жълто боядисана врата асоциирам с слънчевите врати, които са известни от писмени изобразителни извори. Един от примерите е вратата на гробницата, могилата Голяма косматка, върху която са изобразени от едната страна глава на Хелиос, от другата на Медуза. Друг такъв пример са портите от могилата Хелвеция, украсени с слънчеви кръгове. Писмените извори, които изобщо ме насочиха към тази интерпретация, е началото на 24-та песен от Одисея, която разказва какво се случва с убитите, умъртвените от женихи. Те са поведени от Хермес към бъдното. Тъй след делителя Хермес, душите на всички женихи водени запърполиха по плесенни мрачни предели, край океанските струи, край скалата Левкада, през слънчови двери и страната на сънищата. Стигнаха в жалобен рой, а с отделната цветна поляна, дето блуждаят душите. Този разказ съответства в много голяма степен на топографията на гробницата. Когато душите преминават през реката Океан, това съответства на дългия Хронос. След това преминават край бялата скала, това съответства на първия вход, първата дверието. След това минават през слънчевите двери, това отговаря на втория вход, над който именно е нарисувана слънчевата, жълтата, златната врата, и достигат земята на сънищата. В нашия случай в гробницата влизат в куполното помещение с изображенията на отвъдния свят и накрая, поред Омир, пристигат на полетата на телиите, където обитават мъртвите. В куполното помещение, аз предполагам, правила съм предишни такива изследвания, че пият или ядат храни, съдържащи психоактивни растения и се отправят към сънуване на отвъдното, или пък в случая, че са приели твърде много или са си починали по естествени причини, буквално се преселват в отвъдното, което е описано за древните траки като вечно пиянство заедно с двете. Още едно писмено сведение, епиграфско, от доста по-късна епоха, от 3 век след Христа, съдържа и много християнски елементи, много интересен надпис от село Доксато, близо до Филипи. Този надпис се описва как жена посреща посветените тракийски мисти в отвъдното. И обновен, възстановен живееш в елисейските полета, така е угодно на боговете да живееш под друга вечна форма, а ти, който си достоен за дневна или божествена светлина, сега белязаната, запечатаната мистка те приобщава към честа на живота на Дионис, като сатирна цветоносна ливада, и който повеждаш празничните бойни шествия с пакли от чамово дърво, с който отвъден персонаж аз идентифицирам този персонаж в Александрово. Ако не превишавам времето, мога да прескоча. Добре, тогава ще прескоча анализа на облеклото, защото той реално нася с нещо. Красата за глава е интересна. Тя не изглежда да бъде прическа или диадема, по-скоро ми прилича на шапка или шлем. Ако е шапка, това е шапката на пътниците с периферия. Нарича се Петасос. Това е шапката на Хермес Компос, който води душите в отвъдното. Ако е шлем, това е някакъв тип амазонка, жена, воин, които срещат в разописта в физически сцени от Южна Италия. И това е моята интерпретация. Тълкувам сцената с алтернативно четене, алтернативен прочит, като ритуален визуален текст. Жената, като ритуална лиминална фигура или отвъдна жрица тип психопомпос, отваря златна слънчова врата към отвъдното, за тракийския владетел, който се отправя към света на своето безсмъртие. Сцената тълкувам като хронотоп. От една страна я разчитам едновременно като ритуален преход между различни времеви режими, земното към митичното време, смъртната крайност към вечността, смъртта като край към смъртта като преход в друга форма на живот. От друга страна разглеждам пространствената функция на стъписа, разположен над действителната каменна врата, водеща към ритуалното куполно помещение, където се намират ритуалното и погребално ложе и различните изображения на отвъдния живот на тракийските брати.
Unfortunately, Ruslan Stoichev was unable to attend the conference, so we are moving on to the presentation of Elina Anastasova, Institute of Art Studies, Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. Дионисовият тяс и паметникът от Белене, The Dionysian Thiasus and the Monument from Белене.
Може някак си да го наведем долу, защото не виждам. Да, благодаря. Здравейте, колеги! В следващите минути ще ви представя един интересен паметник, който е открит в Белене. Върху него ще видите интересна композиция, свързана с култа към Хронос. Така. Колоната заема важно място в култа към Дионис. От една страна, подобни паметници са били посвещавани от името на неговите жреци, а изсечените върху тях надписи дават информация както за структурата на религиозната им организация, така и за имената на мистите, участващи в нея. Добър пример за това са колоната от Атина и от Бутово. От друга страна обаче, колоната може да бъде и проявление на самия бог Дионис, както смятат някои учени. Дали такъв е случая с паметника от Белене, който предстои да разгледаме в следващите минути, ще разберем. Така. Паметникът е първично публикуван от Стефан Стефанов през 40-те години на миналия век, който предлага кратко описание и идентификация на персонажите, а заедно с това са публикувани и няколко снимки, които показват актуалното състояние на така наречената колона. В наши дни въпросният паметник е включен в обобщаващо изследване, посветено на култа към Дионис в Нове и са приложени по-добри снимки. С цел изясняване на предполагаемата функция и контекст на така наречената колона от Белене ще разгледаме по-подробно иконографските особености на персонажите, ще потърсим близки паралели на формата и иконографията на паметника и ще се опитаме да интерпретираме така представената сцена. Заедно с това ще се направи и коментар върху датировката на изображенията на база на техния стил, в случаите, в които това е възможно. Паметникът привлича вниманието ни поради необичайната си форма и композиция. Както вече казах, наподобява малка колона, цилиндрично тяло, която изтънява в горната си част. Както виждате, тя е завършила с малък кант, запазен частично. Височината е само 42 см, диаметрът е 12 см. Повърхността е изпълнен непрекъсната фигурална композиция с 4 фигури. Така, като цяло, това, което може да се каже, е, че долната част е равно оформена, вероятно, от което може да се съди, че паметникът е бил поставен върху равна повърхност. Всички фигури носят следи от изтриване и очупване в различна степен. Най-често са очупени стъпалата или краката им, повредени са и лицата и фризурите им. Майстор, изработил този паметник, е използвал изцяло изобразителното поле. Фигурите са изпълнени по цялата дължина на колоната и са плътно разположени една до друга. Първичната публикация е предложена следната идентификация на фигурите, а именно Херакъл, Пан, Дионис и непознат женски персонаж, като тази интерпретация може да бъде възприята и но предстои по-детайлно да разгледаме особеностите на всеки един персонаж с цел разчитане на смисъла на тази сцена и основното значение на паметника. Първият образ, който описва Стефанов, принадлежи на Херакъл младеж, прав, гол, с глава обърната наляво, дясната му ръка е спусната надолу, а дланта е изнесена в страни. Лявата е била спусната покрай тялото, с нея той се опирал на кривак. Върху тази ръка също е преметната и лъвската кожа. Бихме допълнили описанието последния начин. Херакъл е заел поза контрапосто с опорен 10 крак и ляв свит в коляното. Върху лицето му, представено в профил наляво, са били отбелязани очите, носа и устните. Това се вижда по-добре на снимката от 40-те години. Фризурата е къса, не е обемна. В нея се забелязва елемент, който опасва главата около връз. Може да се предположи, че става въпрос за стилизиран венец. Мускулатурата на тялото е бегло маркирана. Идентификацията, която Стефанов предлага, е резонна. Намираме добър паралел в случая при скулптура на Херакъл от Лувъра, създата във II век. Тук в момента обаче да отбележим, че разменен е опорния крак, прямо паметника от Белене, а също така дясната ръка е поднесена към бедрото. В нашия случай Херакъл и тежестта на тялото му е понесена изцяло от върнатия надолу кривак. Така, това, на което искам да ви обърна внимание, е, че в дясната ръка, която очевидно е изнесена в страни, най-вероятно е държал съд за пиене, както показват и примерите от Марцианопол, Одесус и Сердик. Така. Ясно от Херакъл е разпозната фигурата на Пан, изобразен гол в профил и ход наляво. Подробностите на лицето му са силно нарушени, фризурата е къса, брадата и дългите му рога не са запазени, въпреки това фигурата е идентифицирана вследствие на добре запазените кози крака, както се вижда. За разлика от предримския период, когато освен Пан, по този начин са изобразявани и сатирите, то в каменната пластика от провинция Долна Мизия този иконографски елемент е присъщ само за бога на стада. Тялото му има заоблени страни, лявата ръка е спусната покрай тялото. На снимката от по-късната публикация се вижда, че държи предмет, който е с заоблена форма, който напомня много на съд за пиене, изобразен и върху релеф от Стара Загора. Дясната ръка, навярно, е била вдигната свита и вдигната към лицето. При снимката от по-късната публикация се вижда, че Пан държи някакъв предмет, който е равно отрязан, формен в случая. Имайки предвид начина му на представяне върху мотивната плоча от Одесус, може да предположим, че той държи музикален инструмент, че е сиринг. Също така ще отбележим, че пространството между Пан и съседната фигура е запълнено и от стилизирано изображение на брашлян, в които са запазени и няколко от неговите листа. Тази флорална композиция обгражда и съседната немо фигура, която е интерпретирана като Дионис. Това, което Стефан Стефанов казва за неговата фигура е, че е представена в ход наляво, но не допълва подробностите, които виждаме на тази снимка. Ще ви обърна внимание на това, че Бога на виното е обърнал главата си надясно към съседния женски персонаж. Както личи, върху лицето са били отбелязани очите, носа, устните, косата му е обемна, а върху лицето му личи и дълга брада. Също така ще отбележим, че дясната му ръка е поднесена над главата, а лявата е спусната покрай тялото. Още няколко неща, които да отбележа и те липсват в двете публикации, за които станах въпрос, е, че най-вероятно в спуснатата си лява ръка Дионис държи съд за пиене. Ето тук може да видите за какво говоря. В пространството между Дионис и женския персонаж откриваме още една фигура, която смятам, че принадлежи на пантера, както виждате върху добре познатата иконография на Бога, представена и върху релефа от Мадъра. Обикновено пантерата е дигнала глава към Бога и към търсовидния съд, който той държи. Последен момент, върху който ще се спра, е ето този мотив, който виждате около ръката му. В случая смятам, че е представена змия, която е усукана около ръката на Бога. Така. Този елемент от иконографията му е добре представен и върху няколко релефа и статуетки от провинция Долна Мизия и Тракия, както се вижда. В случаите, в които ръката му е поднесена над главата, става въпрос за така наречения ликейски жест. Имайки предвид това, можем да заключим, че този елемент не е необичайен за иконографията му през римския период. Малко по-различно стои въпросът с изобразяването на брада и добавянето на брада към образа му. Единствените примери, които успях да открия, са при няколко херми и олтар от първи век, т.е. група олтари от първи век, при които се копира иконография с архаичен. Така. Последният персонаж не е определен от Стефан Стефанов. Единственото, което знаем за него е, че принадлежи на женска фигура, а по една от дете й се спуска змия отново. Ще допълним описанието по последния начин. Главата на жената е обърната към Дионис. Както виждате, върху лицето са били маркирани подробности, фризурата е била прихваната, косата е била прихваната на тила. Навярно, горната половина от тялото не е била покрита, не личи никъде да има следи от дръперия. Дясната ръка е била спусната, около нея личи тялото на змията, докато дясната е била свита и поднесена към лицето. В търсене на паралел открих сходство при фигура на Менада от мозайката от Нея Пафос, поради което бих интерпретирала точно така този персонаж. Добавянето на змия към образа на Менадата не е нещо необичайно. По принцип в предримския период този елемент присъства в сцени, в които е представен екстатичен танц на Менади. Въпреки това, в каменната пластика от провинция Долна Мизия подобен втори такъв пример не ми е известен. Обикновено Менадите са изобразени статични, държейки някакъв музикален инструмент. Много по-малко примери имаме за моменти, в които те са представени танцуващи. Имайки предвид, че фигурите на Менада, Пан и Пантера са сред обичайните спътници на Дионис, ще разгледаме иконографите, при които Херакъл се появява заедно с бога на виното. Те биха могли да ни дадат някакъв ориентир каква сцена всъщност е представена върху колоната. Няколко са иконографските схеми, които ще спомена, а именно сцена с триумфа на Дионис, сцена с сватбата на Дионис и Ариадна, състезание по пиене между Херакъл и Дионис и сцена на празненство. Така. Имайки предвид, че върху паметникът от Белене Дионис и Пан са изобразени в движение, а фигурата на Херакъл е статична, представена подпряна върху кривака си, най-вероятно майсторът е искал да изрази идеята за опиянение от свещеното питие на Дионис Бог. Отсъствието на колесница в тази сцена позволява да предположим, че всъщност върху паметника от Белене е изобразен момент от Дионисиев празник или дори момент от въпросното състезание. Това, което прави впечатление при паметника от Белене е, че изображенията са изсечени в нисък релеф, имат идентична трактовка или иначе казано, паметникът е предназначен да се наблюдава от всички страни. Отличаващата се иконография и форма свидетелстват за създаването на колоната по частна поръчка, което повдига и следващия въпрос, а именно каква е същността на този паметник. Формата му напомня на колона, но малките й размери подсказват, че тя не е имала носеща функция. Сред останалите възможности, които стоят пред нас, са именно употребата й като база за някаква статуя или олтар с намалени размери. За да може да се определи един паметник като база за статуя, дори и такава с малки размери, то в горната й част следва да има отвор за прикачване на статуята или следи от самата скулптура. Най-често става въпрос за изсечени стъпки. Подобен пример имаме от Томи. Тази база е открита в римска сграда с мозаичен под, а според надписа е посветена на богинята Сирия от името на Созипос от Сидон. Датирана е в 3 век. Другата възможност, която стои пред нас е всъщност паметник от Белене да представлява малък олтар. Подобен пример с сходни размери имаме и от Мала Азия, в случая той е Атис. Отсъствието на надпис и отвор за прикачване на изображение при беленския паметник по-скоро отхвърля идентификацията му като база. Възможно ли е тогава паметника, който разглеждаме, всъщност да е олтар с по-малки размери? В опит да докажем това, ще отправим поглед към редицата примери за олтари с кръгла форма и дионисиеви сцени, които имаме в римското изкуство от западните провинции. Направеният преглед показва, че имаме редица подобни примери, които най-често се отнасят в периода 1 век преди Христа, 1 след Христа. Единични примери имаме от Хадрианово-Антониново време и Северово време. Ако трябва да обобщим техните особености, то ще споменем, че техните размери са различни, от монументални такива до примери с височина малко под 1 метър. В случаите, в които имат сигурен контекст, той показва, че са били поставени в театри и в градински пространства. Най-често използваните схеми са именно иконографски схеми, са танц на нимфи, танц на Менади и по-големи композиции, в които участват и други членове на Дионисиевия тяст. По принцип, прототип на тази сцена с танцуващите нимфи се търси в 5 век преди Христа и се свързва с името на майстора Калимах. Предполага се, че фигурите на танцуващите нимфи са декорирали олтар или база за статуя на Дионис, а по-късно от тази иконография се развива и композицията с танцуващите нимфи, която в римско време е обогатена и с други членове на Тиаса. Така, останалите примери, които имаме, са за сцени с празник на Дионис и момент от жертвоприношение на прасе или на Въпросните олтари са използвани за деклариране на пространства с публичен и частен контекст, но въпреки това имат и култова функция. По-малките образци обаче едва ли са били използвани за принасяне на кръвна жертва. Според Олаф Дрегер, към тях е добавена и малка преносима рула или съд, който да бъде използван за различни нужди, а именно горене на масла или поднасяне на символичен дар, например плодове. Ако сравним формата на нашия паметник с най-малките образци от тази група, а именно олтарите от галерия Боргезе и Лувър, ще видим, че тяхната височина е постигната, като към цилиндричното им тяло е добавена кръгла плинта с пояс и кима, като по този начин може да завършат горната и долната си част. Въпреки това, диаметрът им е двойно по-голям спрямо от този на паметника от Белене. Имайки предвид всички наблюдения, които направихме до момента, а именно сходната форма на паметника, общата тема, представена върху него спрямо примерите, които имаме от западните провинции, може да предположим, че паметникът от Белене всъщност е олтар с намалени размери. За частната му изработка, т.е. изработването му по поръчка, свидетелстват и индивидуално подбраните изображения, които имат добри паралели сред изкуството от провинция Долна Мизия и Тракия. Можем да предположим, че в нашия случай става въпрос за оброчен дар, олтар или такъв поставен в домашен контекст. Очевидно, олтарите с форма на колона и дионисиеви сцени са били добре познати в западните провинции на империята. Въпреки това, подобни примери имаме и от източните й части, макар и формата да не наподобява колона, то сцените и посвещенията в чест на Дионис показват, че тази практика е била практикувана през III век в източните провинции. Недобре запазените подробности на персонажите върху олтара от Белене затрудняват поставянето на точна датировка. Въпреки това, следите от обемна фризура и обемна брада, които са представени при образа на Дионис, насочват към дата в Северово време. Въпреки това може да се предложи по-широка дата, съобразена с начина на скулптиране на телата и техните пропорции, близки паралели, подкрепени в някои случаи и с надписи. При фигурите на Дионис, Херакъл и Пан не се забелязва скъсяване на пропорциите на телата, които имат плавни извивки. Също така не се забелязва и оголемяване на главите им, което е белег на изкуството след средата на III век. Всичко това ни насочва към по-ранна дата. Като цяло образите от олтара от Белене намират паралели при релефа от Момина крепост, релефа от Монтана и скулптурната група от Долна Кремена, които най-общо са отнесени в периода от края на II до първата половина на III век. Това е и датата, която смятам, че е резонна за този паметник. Дали олтарът от Белене е бил поднесен в извънградско светилище или е използван в домашен контекст, едва ли някога ще разберем. Въпреки това, отличаващия се със своята форма, размери и иконография паметник свидетелства за популярността на култа към Дионис през първата половина на III век в провинция Долна Мизия, за което свидетелстват и редица други релефи и статуетки от тези земи. Благодаря ви за внимание.
След панела. So, moving on. Милена Райчева, National Archaeological Institute Museum, Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. Once again on the Perseus and Andromeda motif in Deutum. Не съм чула нещо друго.
Dear colleagues, it's great to be here. Thank you, Marina, for the invitation. I always dreamed of being part of the Art Studies
Thank you very much.
Symposium, and here I am. Now, I'm going to talk to you about a mythological scene that seems to have been very popular in a particular time and place, therefore corresponds to our Chronos and Topos problematic here. The time is the early 3rd century AD, and the place is the Roman colony of Deutum in Thrace. For those of you who are not familiar with it, Deutum, or Colonia Flavia Pacis Deutensium, was a Roman foundation in Thrace, It is located not far from modern-day Burgas on the southwest Black Sea coast, and it is also at the edge of a liman, the Mandra Lake. That is just a lake now, but used to be a navigable gulf back in antiquity. The colony was established in the year AD 70 for veterans from the 8th Augustan Legion, and it was only one of 2 Roman colonies founded in Thrace. Currently, there is a National Archaeological Reserve on the spot and a museum in situ. There have been excavations ongoing at irregular intervals for the past 40 years. The Roman colony of Deutum had a very active and prolific mint, which is the reason I'm here today. In the reign of Emperor Macrinus, which lasted only 14 months from 217 to 18 AD, the city began striking coins with reverses depicting in a lot of detail a mythological scene. Perseus saves the Ethiopian princess Andromeda from the sea monster Cetus. Andromeda, daughter of Cepheus and Cassiopeia, was chained to a rock in a place called Ioppe and sacrificed because of her mother's hubris. It angered Poseidon, and he sent her a sea monster. Perseus managed to intervene just on time by petrifying the sea monster with the help of Medusa's head. This motif, well known and beloved in antiquity, persisted for 3 decades until the end of the mint's activity under Philip II, with at least 5 known variants struck from 8 different matrices identified by the main numismatic corpus of the city, published by Dimitar Draganov. This remarkable resilience and the fact that very few other ancient cities chose this otherwise popular myth in their coinages have generated many discussions. Why did this theme appear in the coinage of the colony? What was the meaning attached to it? Multiple hypotheses, which I will address later, have explored the connection between this specific time, this specific place, and this specific iconography. This is precisely the aim of my talk today, too. These graphic drawings of the 5 variants identified so far by Draganov show more clearly the variations of the scene. The general composition remains the same. It is a relatively complex scene for the narrow, restricted space of a coin reverse. The main differences are in the closeness between the Perseus and Andromeda's figures, the direction in which the Cetus head is turning, and the accessories or weapons that Perseus has, especially his sword, the harpy. This particular composition is perhaps best known through the frescoes of Pompeii, which are considered by some scholars to be copies of a famous painting attributed to the Hellenistic artist Nicias. It is otherwise, of course, known in other mediums too, including mosaics, stone relief, and small arts. Those who have studied the popularity of the Perseus and Andromeda motif in Roman art have arrived at the conclusion that it did not have just one function and one meaning throughout the ages. These could vary across time and context. For example, it could be appreciated simply as a romantic scene, which was largely the case in the 1st century AD at the peak of popularity of Ovid's Metamorphoses. At the same time, at various turbulent periods, the scene of liberation was used as an allegory of political events, such as the elimination of piracy in the Eastern Mediterranean in the 1st century BC. Its use in funerary context can also be linked to heroization. But coinage is different. It is something official. As far as coinage is concerned, the theme finds much less popularity than in other mediums. There are very few cities in Asia Minor that portray Perseus in various episodes with the Medusa head, and only 2 cities that had coins with both Perseus and Andromeda. These are Alexandria in Egypt and Koropissus in Cilicia in Asia Minor. In all of these cases, either Perseus alone or together with Andromeda, the locations or the rocky landscapes of these cities are in some way or another linked to the myth of Perseus and Andromeda. Their occurrence per city is relatively limited, or only under particular rulers. Deutum, on the other hand, has no obvious connection to the mythological places. The scene on the Deutum reverses is also more complex as composition and is very resilient, lasting under several rulers without interruption until the end of the mint's activity. Scholars have tried to explain the presence of this theme in the city. There are usually two groups of whys. In the first group of why, the authors mostly argue whether the city chose this reverse because it reflects some urban realia or not. The second group of whys is more profound. It explores whether the theme itself, regardless if it's something real in the city or not, or just a convention, has deeper meaning. I will outline chronologically the main hypothesis so far. Yurukova first included this coin in a numismatic corpus and did not comment on it at all. That the image depicts an actual sculpture is pointed out by Martin Price, who notes the unnatural position of the limbs and suggests that the monument must have been displayed somewhere in a monumental location in the city. According to Nina Hristova, the engraver used a moving motif, which is a motif present on various art mediums. The inspiration for it was a copy for Nikea's painting that was present in the city and possibly a Perseus cult that was practiced in the city. Draganov's corpus, the main numismatic reference for the Deutum, only calls the depiction a mystery, but does not explain it at all. Johannes Nollet does not believe that the scene depicts a real monument, but tries to find a greater meaning in the theme itself. He explains it with Deutum's desire to claim an older age through the invention of a foundation myth. He views the motif as an end-of-the-world story, based on a poem by Pindar, who places the salvation of Andromeda somewhere in the north. Therefore, the Deutum is the place where Perseus saved Andromeda. The latest academic research is by Christian von Mosch, who believes that the scene depicts a real-life sculpture group in the city, of which he even provides a parallel. Furthermore, he sees a political message in the monument itself related to the Parthian Wars. Since recently, thanks to archaeology and some chance, this debate can move a step further. Some answers were provided unexpectedly in the north part of the Deutum in the so-called imperial cult temple site. The site has been excavated since the 1980s and the research is ongoing. An especially interesting feature there is an abandoned water tank. In it were discovered remains from various sculptures, but also other types of debris, burnt materials after some sort of catastrophe. They were all burnt and broken already in antiquity and found in a secondary context, used as fill-up for cavities and for leveling up spaces. The implementation of two contemporary projects related to the Deutum has caused the re-examination and sorting of all these marble fragments. Many non-inventorite finds from the 80s and from the most recent excavations have been stored at various locations at the museum, but not only, inside the exhibition, in the lapidarium, and depositories even in different towns. In the process of their assembly and documentation and cataloging, some interesting pieces were identified and matched together. Some of them are directly relevant to this discussion. They are made of Proconnesian marble and bear traces of painting. One curious piece that brought my attention was a male left wrist, grasping an identified oblong object and locks of red-painted hair. Another one was the muzzle of a fantastical animal with many teeth and grooves on the upper surface. They sparked curiosity and the idea that the head may actually belong to a Perseus holding simultaneously Medusa's head and the harpy, and the creature could be no other than the sea monster Chronos. This concept made us look differently at the hundreds of scattered fragments and helped us connect seemingly heterogeneous parts. They were all confirmed to be made from the same marble. Gradually, more and more pieces assembled to each other to what seemed to be a larger-than-life-size monument. This made us realize that the Utum did in fact have a really existing sculpture group of Perseus and Andromeda, just like von Mosch had suggested. The best known and most preserved specimen is the so-called Valmoden group. It depicts the same composition as the coins of the Utum. The Valmoden specimen is earned in life size and originates from Rome. It was made in the 2nd century AD. It was previously displayed at the Göttingen Museum, but is currently kept in a secret location by its owner, the Prince Valmoden. There must have been, of course, many such groups in antiquity, but none are preserved intact today. Among them is this Polychromos Andromeda, now in Dresden, dated to the 1st century BC, or this much later small format group found in a private context in a villa in Spain. The iconographic parallel, together with the samples that confirmed the same provenance of the marble, helped us identify more and more parts. Among them was this torso, which was previously labeled Dionysian torso, but under close inspection we could see female breasts and the exact same outline of the clothing as the Andromeda from Valmoden. Furthermore, there were the legs of Andromeda with this part here, which we wondered for quite a long time, what is this marble thing sticking out, which turned out to be Perseus' knee. Now, based on the Valmoden parallel and the city coinage and the so far identified parts, the following reconstruction can be now offered for the Deutum group. The parts that you see in gray exist. The assembled height is calculated over life size at approximate to 20 meters. Perseus is very close to Andromeda. His knee is practically touching her robes. This was perhaps necessary for stability reasons, as the Deutum statue is much larger and heavier than the other ones that are known. The head of the Chronos is turned to the left. In his left hand, Perseus holds the Medusa head and the harpy. This more or less explains the first part of the why. It seems now confirmed that Deutum's mint portrayed an existing sculpted monument, as some scholars had theoretically suggested. This is proven on at least one more occasion in Deutum with an actually existing statue of Minerva that appeared on coinage. It also seems certain that the Perseus and Andromeda group was displayed in an official setting, unlike the other stone specimens in the round, which were most likely used to decorate private contexts. This is obvious in the first place by its size and the continuous appearance on coinage. There is so far no direct evidence of its use within a cult building, or broadly speaking, a religious complex. It may have been part of some public ensemble, such as a portico, a park, a grotto near a water installation, etc. What is particularly interesting, though, is that the earliest coin, the one struck under Macrinus, renders the detail of the attached knee, which also implies that the monument was in view and the dying graver witnessed it when making the matrix. In the later specimens, the figures start moving around, the Ketu starts turning the head, and Perseus and Andromeda grow apart. And we are back to the second group of why. The appearance of the multiphone coins dated to the short reign of Macrinus still cannot find a definitive explanation. The use of the group within a cult context is certainly possible, but not proven. In my opinion, the end of the world theory proposed by Johannes Nollet does not seem convincing. Nothing in the physical landscape around the Utum can be linked to the mythical rocks of Andromeda's liberation. Also, it is not clear why the city would need a justification for a foundation myth nearly 150 years after its actual foundation, nor the need of a colonia to distinguish itself above the surrounding cities of peregrine status. The latest suggestion that the motive may be linked to a political matter like the Parthian Wars seemed to me far more likely. Rather than being able to answer these questions, I'd like to suggest some new directions that may lead to a solution possibly in the future. One idea is that the image is an inherited occasion, meaning that the occasion for the setting up of this sculpture group in the city and the minting of the coin occurred some time before, probably at the very end of Caracal's rule, but the monument itself was completed only a little afterwards under the next emperor. If, on the other hand, something took place exactly under Macrinus, then this event should not be related to his persona because he was subjected to damnatio memoriae, and this scene would not have lasted under his successors who condemned his memory. It may be, for instance, an astrological reference to a specific time, as all characters involved in this group are also constellations. It was probably understandable for contemporaries, but is lost to us. Such practice of putting constellations or astrological reference is known in Roman coins. Another option would be a privilege. Another option would be that the scene documents or commemorates an event of lasting importance for the city, like a privilege, that may be continued even after the end of the mint. And also the sea monster may be holding a key. Perhaps it indicates a dispute over the control of the then navigable Mandra Lake and the sea trade routes, a dispute that the Utum probably had with its neighbors like Anchialos or Apollonia Pontica. Hopefully we'll know one day. Now we don't. Maybe we just need to look from a different perspective. Thank you for your attention.
And the last presentation for this session, Mario Ivanov, National Archaeological Museum, Institute Museum, Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, Pagan of Christian, the Ups Temple outside the eastern gate of Serdica.
Dear colleagues, I'm happy to be here, and I'm going to introduce you some new ideas about an old research monument in Serdica here in Sofia. In 1949, during the construction of the Communist Party House in Sofia, an architectural complex of 3 buildings was excavated outside the fortress walls, immediately southeast of the city's eastern gate. Here is the location you see in the red circle. It consists of an early Christian single-nave basilica with an narthex labeled as Basilica number 2 and a 3-nave early Christian basilica labeled as Basilica number 1, according to the researchers, with a baptistry built later on the ruins of the earlier basilica. You see the complex. The earlier building has been preserved only in its substructure. This one. The masonry is of river stones bonded with mortar. The building measures 24 by 10 meters. The diameter of the apse is 7 meters and the wall thickness is 0.20 meters. In front of the apse, the walls form extensions to the north and south, identified as a transept. This one. The wall separating it from the south is narrower, and Magdalena Stancheva suggests that it served as a foundation for a colonnade. An identical arrangement is assumed at the southern end of the transept. On the eastern face of the wall dividing the nave from the narthex, wall painting decoration was preserved. The building is dated to the 4th century and its plan features are regarded as an intermediate stage in the development of early Christian basilicas with a transept in the Bulgarian lands, particularly in relation to the Basilica of St. Sophia in Serdica. The results of the excavations were a subject of discussions by other scholars. According to Nelly Chaneva-Dechevska, the role of the Basilica No. 2 as a stage in the formation of the plan of the St. Sophia is debatable. Architect Stefan Boegiев suggests that originally a martyrium was built on the site, whose architectural form encompassed the eastern part of the later Basilica No. 2. A sarcophagus was placed in the martyrium, and in the site extensions there were graves covered with stone slabs. According to him, the martyrium was built shortly after 313. It was destroyed during the reign of Julian the Apostate and later restored as a single nave church. St. Kirin shares the Stefan Boegiev's opinion but dates the construction of the martyrium to before AD 313 and its transformation into a single nave basilica to around that time. Later research has not offered a different interpretation of the remains. In synthesized form, the available information can be summarized as follows. In close proximity to the eastern gate of Serdica, an architectural complex of several diachronic structures was built. The earliest building in this complex, labeled as Basilica No. 2, has unusual architectural features, a wide apse and lateral extensions to the south and north, which have led some researchers to propose a different functional identification of the building. All researchers a priori interpret the building as an early Christian basilica, although there is no secure archaeological evidence for its chronology and function. The published information from the excavations in 1949 is highly limited and incomplete, leaving a number of important questions without clear answers. Construction of the so-called Basilica No. 2 has been dated to the 4th century based on two main presumptions. The building ends with an apse to the east and is therefore interpreted as an early Christian basilica, from which it follows that it cannot predate the AD 313. The time of its destruction is linked to known historical events, in this case the Gothic invasion of AD 378. An analysis of the building's architectural type has been proposed, on the basis of which an attempt has been made to determine its place within the early Christian architecture of Serdica. The published plan of the remains of the building allows for additional observations that could provide starting points for analysis. The most important and unusual feature is the wall that separates the apse and the lateral extensions from the central nave of the basilica. This wall. The presence of such a wall implies an interruption of access to the most important apse area of the building. Regardless of the architectural type to which the basilica may belong, such a break in the main visual and functional connection between the altar space and the nave would be unacceptable and illogical. The wall in question was built together with the northern and southern walls of the extension in front of the apse, indicating that these walls were part of a unified construction plan. Architect Stefan Boegiев quite rightly considers the eastern part of the apse and the extensions as a separate original building, which he identifies as a martyrium. The relationships between the western wall under discussion and the continuation westward of the northern and southern outer walls of the building is not sufficiently clear. These points here in the circles. According to the plan, the northern wall of the nave appears to be structurally connected with the western wall of the transept. On the exterior side, partial destruction of the masonry is indicated, which also allows for the possibility that there was no structural connection. In the southern half, the southern wall of the nave has not been preserved. The western wall of the transept in this section is preserved up to the southwest corner of the southern extension. At the point where it would presumably connect with the southern outer wall of the nave, no traces of a structural connection between the two walls can be observed. Such destruction affecting only one of the two walls, built as part of one and the same structure, is impossible. In the masonry of the preserved wall, traces of the construction of the transverse wall connected to it should remain in the form of small projecting parts of that construction or missing stones in the masonry of the preserved wall. In her description of Basilica number 2, Magdalena Stancheva notes that the walls of the apse and the other parts of the building have the same thickness of 80 centimeters. However, it is evident from the drawing that the transverse wall blocking the northern arm of the transept is thinner, which is one of the reasons why this wall has been interpreted as a stylobed. Careful comparison of the wall thickness in the plan shows that the northern and southern walls of the nave are slightly thicker than the northern, western, and probably the southern one of the transept. These walls here are thicker than this wall. These observations allow the assumption that the eastern part of the building, the white apse together with the two lateral extensions and the western wall, initially represented an independent structure to which the remaining parts, the nave and the narthex, were subsequently added. The difference in wall thickness described above are quite small, however, and it is also possible that they result from inaccuracies in the surveying or in the preparation of the drawing. The details presented raises doubts regarding the claim that the Basilica number 2 was originally constructed in the form shown in the published plan. The assumption of architect Stefan Boiedziev appears more likely, that initially the eastern part of the Basilica number 2 constituted an independent building with a wide apse and lateral extensions, which was later enlarged westward, acquiring the appearance of the so-called Basilica number 2. The plan features of the so-called Basilica number 2 form the basis of all opinions proposed by the researchers regarding the chronology and function of the building. The search for appropriate parallels in an attempt to clarify its place in the evolution of the early Christian architecture of Serdica has resulted in two different identifications: an early Christian martyrium or an early Christian single-nave basilica, representing an early stage in the evolution of the basilica with transept. There is, however, a third possibility that has not yet been discussed in the scholarly literature, that the original building may have been a pagan temple. Grounds for such an interpretation are provided by architectural parallels with pagan cult buildings, among which the basilica under discussions finds a very close parallel. The use of buildings with an apse for the worship of various deities is attested in many places across the Roman Empire. For example, both celle of the Temple of Venus and Roma on the Forum Romanum in Rome have an apsidal form. This feature, however, represents a later reconstruction during the time of Maxentius. Cult buildings with an apse are also known from Britain, Lusitania, Pannonia, Dacia, Germania, and Syria. From Lower Measure and Thrace, examples of apsidal pagan cult buildings are currently known from Anasamus, Hysaria, Sexaginta Prista, and the Arpanas quarter near Radomir. In the last two examples, the apse is oriented to the east. For the apsidal structures at the villages of Ruche, Kasnakovo, and Koshov, identification as pagan sanctuary is also highly probable. In the northern part of the forum complex of Heraclea Sintica, three larger rooms with apsidal ending and a niche on the northern side have been investigated, which are also thought to have had a function of a sanctuary. These examples demonstrate that the use of the apsidal buildings for the worship of pagan deities was not unexceptional and is sufficiently well attested. In 2024, at the locality Akladi, south of Chernomorets, a complex of several buildings was investigated. The earliest structure represents a wide short building with a large apse on the eastern side, here in yellow on the plan. The dimensions of the structures are 10 by 6.5 meters, and the internal diameter of the apse is 6 meters. The building is preserved entirely in substructure. The remains of that building. Its walls have an identical thickness of 80 centimeters and are built of river and quarry stones bonded with clay. South of it, a stone structure was discovered which has been interpreted as a primitive altar. The apsidal building is interpreted as a temple from Roman period dedicated to an unknown deity. In the 4th century, a villa was built over the remains of the temple, and in the 6th century, a three-nave early Christian basilica was constructed on the same site. The apsidal building at the Kladi locality near Chernomorets provides an exceptionally suitable parallel to the layout of the eastern part of the Basilica number 2 in Serdica, including in terms of dimensions. Here are two buildings with same one and the same mastab scale. The orientation of the two pagan cult buildings is almost identical, both with respect to the cardinal directions and in relation to the early Christian basilicas built over their remains. The state of preservation of the structure at the Kladi near Chernomorets does not allow it to be determined with certainty whether it had any extensions to the west, similar to the Basilica number 2 in Serdica. In view of the observations presented above, and especially the parallels with the apsidal temple near Chernomorets, it may be assumed with a sufficiently high degree of certainty that near the eastern gate of Serdica, a pagan cult building with a wide apse and lateral extensions once stood, which was later probably converted into a single nave basilica. The chronology of both the pagan temples and its conversion into an early Christian building is difficult to determine precisely. The apse building at the Kladi dates as early as the 1st-2nd centuries AD, which for various reasons can hardly be accepted for the building in Serdica. The earliest possible terminus post quem for the erection of such a structure in Serdica would be the last quarter of the 2nd century, although its construction after the beginning of the 3rd century seems more likely. During archaeological excavations in 1998, west of the National Archaeological Museum, the former Büyük Mosque, evidence of fire was identified shortly after the middle of the 3rd century, probably connected with a hostile attack. It is possible that the apsidal building was damaged at that time, or that it was erected after these events. In conversion into an early Christian basilica may be dated to the 4th century. Whether this change in cult practice was connected with deliberate actions by the Christian community against paganism cannot be determined. Archaeological evidence from other pagan sanctuaries in Thrace, as well as some finds from Serdica, indicates that the worship of the old deities continued at least until the 2nd half of the 4th century. Around the 380, a series of buildings in Serdica show repairs and reconstructions, probably caused by an earthquake. It seems very likely that the pagan temple near the eastern gate was seriously damaged or destroyed in this event, after which its remains were converted into an early Christian basilica. Of course, the presumed conversion could also have occurred earlier. A very important question concerns which deity was worshipped in the apsidal building. In Serdica, several pagan cult buildings have been identified so far. A presumed temple of Zeus Serapis, a temple of Heracles and Tyche, a presumed Mitreum, and a presumed sanctuary of Hypsistius. You see the location of sites in the command plan of Serdica. In 1939, during excavation works beneath the National Archaeological Museum, part of a life-sized marble statue of the goddess Artemis was discovered. In the masonry of the fortress wall of the eastern gate of Serdica, a Greek inscription of Rhodope, a priestess of Artemis, was found. The inscription is dated to the 1st quarter of the 3rd century, although its paleographic features do not exclude a later chronology, around the middle or even the 2nd half of the 3rd century. A fragment of a small statuette of the goddess was also found at the intersection of the modern Graf Ignatieff and Ivan Denko Blue Streets. These finds have led to the suggestions that the cult building dedicated to Artemis once existed in Serdica. Some researchers locate the temple beneath the present-day National Archaeological Museum, former Büyük Mosque, while others point to a broader area between the eastern gate and the southeastern corner of the fortification wall. The most recent excavations to the west of the Büyük Mosque indicate that the building with storage and commercial functions were located there. See the remains of this building under the Archaeological Museum. The find spots of Rhodopes inscription and the torso of the cult statue of Artemis indeed provides strong grounds for seeking the cult building of the goddess near the eastern gate of the city. Identifying the apsidal building in front of the eastern gate of Serdica as a pagan temple provides grounds for associating it precisely with the worship of the goddess Artemis, attested by the aforementioned finds. Arguments for the proposed identifications are entirely indirect, but they have their basis. Future investigations in this part of Sofia, as well as new finds, will likely provide further evidence on the matter. For your attention.
Now let me begin with expressing our gratitude for all our colleagues who attended our conference in this morning session. They presented very interesting and important studies in the field of sculpture, architecture, and painting. In every study, there were new perspectives, new interpretation, and I'm absolutely sure that it will be very important for the future studies to okay, well, thank you. Well, now, do you have any questions or remarks about this? As for the Ultim case, very exciting material, and I was a little frightened of the quantity of these sculptural fragments that we have there. And I hope that in this future investigation that we're planning, we will have similar cases when you can identify some other sculptures, very fragmented unfortunately, but anyway. The Ultim is terra incognita in Roman art, especially in sculpture, and I hope that we will have some other exciting discoveries there. As for Dionysus, I have some thoughts. I think that the composition of the whole monument is quite close to the Neo-Attic monuments as a prototype, not as chronology, of course. I mean, you probably have to think about it as a later interpretation of this kind of Neo-Attic monuments, which may not. You actually put some of these monuments on your presentation, but I think that you have to rethink the old monument in this case of with Neo-Attics. На български, за да ме разбереш, мисълта ми е, че целият този паметник може би се вписва в този тип монументи, които са с класически прототипи, които са много популярни в неоатическия стил и отиват в римска епоха, защото ти търсиш паралели в провинциалната римска скулптура, което е нормално, защото това е провинциален римски паметник, но като прототип и развитие на тая идея, може би трябва да помислиш в тая посока. Това е една класическа идея, която е казва, и тя е пак такава като триизмерна, в смисъл не е релеф само, а те са, нали, релефи на съдове и на всякакви други. Тоест, да го помисля. As for the what kind of monuments is this? Is it possible that it could be a trapezophorus, a table leg? I don't know the upper part. Mm-hmm.
Such element or a trace.
It's not preserved on the
No,
part.
it's not. And about the Neolithic authors, you're right. I don't think that the monument from Delene straight copied all the features of these monuments from the 1st century BC.
As a composition.
Yes, but we don't have any other parallels in Roman art which are some kind of close to the monument of Delene. So it was the best opportunity for me to identify by these parallels. So the main idea of this analysis, I'm not quite sure if I express it best way, but in the 3rd century there were a practice for creating some small altars which were dedicated to Dionysus. And as you saw, we don't have that late examples from the western provinces, but we have it in the eastern part. So I'm not quite sure, but maybe the stone mentionary saw the form and the iconography somewhere in the west and tried to recreate it by some kind of special request by some Trajan man or something like that. But the iconography is influenced by the statuettes and reliefs from the war of Persia. So it's some kind of mixture, you know. So that's
okay, of course, your perspective is, of course, it's correct. But anyway, as a prototype, I believe it extends the Roman provision art from Gomezia and going to Ricard or something. But anyway, we could continue this discussion in some other time.
Well, if I can this, I've searched a lot of time for the parallels and I don't see any others. So that was the reason why I tried to connect it.
Just a perspective, just another perspective to your study.
At least the bearded Dionysus is ancient Greek and most popular. The bearded one, not from 6th century.
Yes, this iconography is copied from the so-called Neo-Attic round altars. I actually read your article in Lexicon Iconographic about the character, and I talked about that. But I think that I need some more time to think about it, if it's possible.
There is too much Greek in it.
Yes.
There is too much Greek.
Yes. I think so. Too much. Anyway, thank you. Well, as for the last presentation, very interesting case. I hope that we will stay for the next panel where we have not quite similar, but similar case to for reusing Roman buildings in late antiquity. So the next panel will be also in. It starts at 2 o'clock. We have some marks or questions? Or you're already tired? Many.
Oriented towards the gate and probably towards the road, right? With exits from these gates.
Maybe.
How do you access it? From which direction? If you are coming from Serbica?
The road is not excavated outside the gate.
But there must be a road.
Yes, but we don't know the exact location and orientation of the road, so it is not very...
So I think that maybe the worship deity might be something related to traveling.
Yes, that is very possible.
And also I would use a more neutral term, not necessarily temple. I would use shrine or cult place. Why?
Okay.
Because you don't know whether there was a terminus, an altar, an institution taking care of this. Yes, and last but not least, such buildings with exedras, they're sometimes used in imperial cult. So you would see an emperor statue very often in a space like this. There is a parallel from Passus.
Yeah, of course, but the finds from the inscription and the food statues is pointing to Artemis. Of course, there is
It would be great if you can find it. That's really great.
other interpretations are also possible.
Also, she was probably not worshipped only on one occasion. She's a very main deity, so maybe she had more than one spot, so that's okay.
We may continue our discussion outside the room. Let's have a break to 2 o'clock when we will continue with Asian later parts.
Няма